Hello, and welcome to Kingdom Political. My name is Renee, and welcome to where you hear about all things kingdom and how God expects us to manifest his kingdom on the earth realm.
Faith in the fight, light in the news. Voices rise, justice grooves. This is Kingdom Political.
Today, we're going to be going through why God is not a socialist and discuss 5 reasons why he's not. Okay. The first one comes from our story in Matthew 25, and I'm going to start from verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also who had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I've gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. You ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Okay. Now, most of society will have you believe, especially when it comes to religion and godly things, that, oh, you're supposed to take this vow of poverty. You're not supposed to have, you're not supposed to prosper. You're not supposed to have too much. But clearly, we hear from this first story in Matthew 25 that God expects results on his investment. For the one that he gave 5 talents to and the one that he gave 10 talents to actually multiplied those talents and gave them back. And what did the Lord say to him? He said, you were good and faithful servants. And because of it, you can enter into the joy of the Lord. What did he say about the one that hid the talent, hid the gift that God had given him, hid the finances, the money, the provision, the seed that God had given him to multiply? Oh, he called him a wicked and lazy servant and pretty much told him to go into darkness. Okay. So that's reason number 1. Number 2, God expects multiplication. Okay. And for that, let's look at Genesis. Genesis 1, verse 26. Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So God wants us to multiply what he's given us. Again, God said he wanted us to multiply, to procreate, to recreate, to create, because God created us in his image and his likeness. That would be another reason why God wouldn't be a socialist. Socialists believe that everyone has equally, and whatever we have, we're supposed to share. And that's about it. As far as multiplication is concerned, you have a certain allotment. The government gives you a certain allotment. And with that allotment, you should be happy with it. In the kingdom of God, God gives you the talents that he knows that you'll be responsible for, or the talents and the gifts that he knows that you're able to have dominion and multiply with, and he expects multiplication out of it. He expects once he comes to reap that harvest, once he comes to collect, he expects that that gift that he's given you would have been multiplied, okay? And that his government would abound in the earth realm, that you would have dominion over everything, okay? That's the second reason that God is not a socialist. What's the third? God expects management of his resources. For that, we need to look at the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, chapter 41. So the story about Joseph was a dreamer who had many brothers. I believe it was 10 or 11 brothers. And he had these elaborate dreams that he would be ruler one day, that his family would bow down before him, including his father, his mother and father. He told his brothers these dreams, and he was the youngest, or one of the youngest of all of them, and pretty much a favorite of his father's. So he would have these dreams. He would tell his brothers about these dreams, tick his brothers off because, of course, there's older brothers. And he pissed them off to a point where they said, you know what, we're tired of him. You know, whenever he comes around, we're doing stuff. He's going back to his father. He's telling on us. He's already his father's favorite. We're going to get rid of this guy. So his father sends him to spy on the brothers. So he goes to spy on the brothers. His brothers see him come from far away and they plot to get rid of him, right? So they decide that they're going to throw him in a well. They throw him in a well. The older brother digs him out of the well. Some Ishmaelites, I believe, come by, or Egyptians come by. They sell the brother to the Egyptians, and the brother winds up in Potiphar's house, one of the rulers of Egypt's house. Okay. So that's where the story is. So he's actually with Pharaoh at this point. Pharaoh has a dream. He can't interpret the dream. His musicians can't interpret the dream. He finds out that this guy named Joseph, who's in jail, is able to interpret dreams. So he calls for him. So after he tells him the dream, then in verse 25 of Genesis 41, then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. About the 7 cows in 7 years, the 7 good heads are 7 years, the dreams are one, and the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. Pretty much letting Pharaoh know that God is saying that there's going to be 7 years of good years that you're going to have, and 7 years of bad years that you're going to have. And then Joseph says to him in verse 33, now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that are coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh and let them keep food in the cities. Then that food shall be as a reserve for the land for the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land may not perish during the famine. So here it is. God has Joseph managing the affairs of Pharaoh and also allocating the 7 years, the food that's supposed to be stored up for 7 years and how it's supposed to be dispersed in each county. So God expects not only management of resources, but proper allocation and dispensation of it. Okay? That's the third reason that God can't be a socialist. So the fourth reason that God cannot be a socialist is because he takes from the one that only has a little bit and gives to the one that has much. He's not fair. Okay? So let's look at Matthew 25, 28 to 29 to see what he's talking about. Because anybody, well, most people would say, well, if this person doesn't have, you need to have welfare systems. You need to have systems in place to make sure that, people have food to eat, have clothing. You need to take from the rich and give to the poor. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be social programs for those that need it. But when we look at the scriptures, it speaks of God with a capitalist mindset. Okay? Matthew 25, verse 27. So here in verse 26, the Lord is rebuking the lazy person, lazy man that only had one talent and didn't use it. He said the least you could have done was taken it and given it to the bank and at least accrued interest for me. Allow my little talent to accrue interest so that when I came back to collect, at least you had something more to give me. You didn't even do that. Okay? So he said, therefore, in verse 28, take the talent from him and give it to him who has how many talents? 10. So God wanted the talent taken from that wicked and lazy servant that only had one talent, that had a socialist mindset, and said, I want you to give it to the one that has a lot because I can entrust him to multiply it. That's the fourth reason. And now for the fifth reason why God cannot be a socialist. God believes in supply and increase, abundant supply and increase. Okay. And for that, let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 10 to 12. Now, he, talking about Jesus, who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food, will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness, or what he deems is right. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. This service that you perform is not only supplying the needs of the Lord's people, but is also overflowing in many expressions of thanks to God. So God expects the seed that you get from your job, or the wage that you get from your job and your employment, to be sowed into a kingdom business, or what he's called you to sow into, so that it can be multiplied, so that you can be generous on every occasion. That doesn't sound like a socialist agenda to me, or a socialist issue. Okay. So to recap, the 5 reasons why God cannot be a socialist is: 1, he expects the talents that he's given you to be multiplied. Number 2, he expects tangible results in the talents that he's given you. Number 3, he expects management of the resources and proper allocation of those resources. Number 4, he expects that at least if you don't use that talent, that you would put it into another kingdom business, or into another storage facility, a church that's bringing results, or another ministry, at least so that talent or that seed can be reproduced. Okay. And number 5, he expects you to take the seed that you get from work, from wage, and sow it into a kingdom business so that it can multiply and be fruitful, so that you can be generous on every occasion.